For centuries, a single name has dominated our nightmares of the ancient seas: Megalodon. We've pictured a colossal, unstoppable monster, a supersized great white shark on a terrifying rampage. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about Megalodon is wrong? Forget the creature of Hollywood fantasy. Recent discoveries are painting a new, far more fascinating and in many ways more formidable picture of this prehistoric apex predator. Prepare to meet the real Megalodon. The story begins not with a mindless brute, but with a calculated hunter, an animal perfectly adapted to its world. In the vast, warm oceans of the Miocene epoch, this giant patrolled its territory. It wasn't just bigger, it was fundamentally different. Its life began as a vulnerable pup, perhaps born in sheltered coastal nurseries. Here, a young Megalodon had to learn the craft of the hunt. It wasn't born a king. It had to earn its crown. Stalking smaller fish, honing its instincts, every encounter was a lesson in survival. These early years were crucial, forging the skills needed to one day dominate the seas. As it grew, its power became undeniable. A flick of its immense tail fin could generate astonishing force, propelling its massive body through the water with deceptive speed. Imagine the sight: a shadow passing over a shimmering school of fish, followed by a sudden explosive burst of acceleration. The hunt was on. Megalodon wasn't just a straight-line attacker. It was a master navigator, capable of maneuvering through complex underwater landscapes, from treacherous canyons to dense kelp forests, using its large, paddle-like fins for surprising agility. Its prey stood little chance. The tools of its trade were legendary. Rows of enormous serrated teeth, each a razor-sharp blade designed for one purpose: to slice through flesh and bone with brutal efficiency. A close look reveals a weapon perfected by millions of years of evolution. When this predator closed its jaws, the result was catastrophic. It could crush the ribs of a prehistoric whale, disable a rival with a single devastating bite. We see this power in action as it lunges for a large squid, jaws snapping shut in a fraction of a second, a display of lethal precision. But the world of the Megalodon was not empty. It was a fiercely competitive environment. Other large marine predators, formidable sharks in their own right, vied for the same resources. Tense standoffs were common, a silent ballet of circling giants, each assessing the other's strength and resolve. When diplomacy failed, conflict was swift and violent. The clash of jaws, the swirling chaos of a territorial dispute, these were battles of titans, where only the strongest would prevail. A victorious Megalodon would assert its dominance, its sheer presence enough to send rivals fleeing and smaller predators scattering in fear. Its reign was absolute. Life in the prehistoric ocean was a constant dance between light and shadow. By day, Megalodon was a master of ambush, its dark back blending with the deep water below as it stalked prey near the sunlit surface. But by night, the ocean transformed. Bioluminescent plankton would light up its scarred hide, outlining its colossal form in an eerie, ethereal glow as it moved through the darkness. It navigated the deepest trenches, a world of perpetual night and immense pressure, guided by the faint lights of strange deep-sea creatures. This was a predator that commanded every level of the ocean, from the sun-drenched reefs to the crushing abyss. The environment itself was a powerful and unpredictable force. Underwater volcanic eruptions could boil the seas, and collapsing rock formations could reshape the landscape in an instant. Megalodon had to be adaptable, reacting instinctively to these cataclysmic events. We see it navigating turbulent currents stirred by storms, its powerful body a bastion of stability amidst the chaos. It wasn't just a hunter, it was a survivor, attuned to the rhythms of a violent, ever-changing planet. The senses of this apex predator were incredibly sharp. Its eyes, constantly scanning the horizon, could detect the subtlest movement of distant prey. It could feel the faint pressure waves of a fleeing fish through the water, tracking its every move with uncanny accuracy. This sensory acuity made it a relentless pursuer. A chase through a winding underwater canyon wasn't a matter of brute force, but of skill and strategy, anticipating the prey's panicked turns and cutting off its escape. The sheer scale of Megalodon's impact on its ecosystem is difficult to comprehend. Its feeding habits shaped the behavior of virtually every other creature in the sea. When it fed, the ocean held its breath. Smaller scavengers would keep a respectful distance, waiting for scraps, knowing that a single swipe of its tail could be deadly. Its presence created a zone of fear, forcing other marine reptiles and sharks into hiding. It was the keystone of this ancient world, the undisputed ruler whose movements dictated the pulse of life and death in the ocean. So why did it vanish? The answer isn't a simple one. It wasn't outcompeted by a bigger monster. Instead, as the world changed, Megalodon found itself unable to adapt. The Earth began to cool, sea levels dropped, and the warm, shallow seas it depended on for nurseries disappeared. Its primary food source, the slow-moving baleen whales, evolved, becoming faster and migrating to the newly forming polar regions where the giant shark could not follow. The king was left without a kingdom, its food gone, its world shrinking. The end of Megalodon was not a dramatic, fiery extinction, but a slow, quiet fade into history. The last of its kind likely starved in a world that no longer had a place for them. Today, all that remains are its fossilized teeth, powerful reminders of its long reign. So when we look back at the Megalodon, let's see it for what it truly was. Not a one-dimensional movie monster, but a complex and successful creature, a master of its environment, the product of millions of years of evolutionary perfection. It was a strategic hunter, an agile navigator, and a resilient survivor. The real story of Megalodon is more awe-inspiring than any fiction. It's a story of power, adaptation, and ultimately, of the unstoppable force of change. It doesn't chase. It simply moves, and the entire ocean panics around it. It's the story of the true and final king of the ancient ocean. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the past. If you enjoyed uncovering the truth about this incredible predator, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more journeys into the prehistoric world. See you next time.